Thanks for coming. Last session of the day. You guys are awesome. That's really good. I want to start by acknowledging that this is possibly the worst name for a session you could ever make. It's like a VH1 throwback or something. I wrote the proposal in like 5 minutes before I left on a 2-week trip, and I came back, and the Evolve web folks said, "Oh, congratulations, your proposal has been accepted." We're going to talk about artificial intelligence, but I think from the looks of this title, I'm living proof that you can get pretty far with natural stupidity. So good luck. I'm going to show you how I automated a statistical and large language model analysis to produce a content analysis that tells me a few things. It tells me how well a page is performing, whether its messaging is consistent with our goals, and where it should fall on our update priority list. And my aim is to press a button and get a 20-page content audit report out the back end. And kind of like a junior analyst might normally write like a day or a day and a half. All right, junior analyst. So question is, am I setting the bar too low? I mean, why not shoot for the moon, get a McKinsey level report out of something like this? Well, I want to explain by way of this Studio Ghibli style picture of me. It's a ChatGPT rendering of a photo that I gave it. That was me on vacation this summer. I think it's pretty good. You can recognize me, right? Well, here's the original photo, right? Not the same thing, right? You can see that the illustration is close, but it's still an interpretation. That's all it is. I think it made me look a little troubled, like that's my last beer at Tesla or something like that. I'm not really sure. But I was just goofing around. So I'd give it a solid B+, and that's exactly where we're headed today. We're headed to a B+. And what's so special about a B+ content audit? Well, it's what you would expect from that junior analyst who's going to do all the grunt work for you. And I know if I'm handed a B+, I can bring it up to an A in about an hour's worth of work. And I'm fine with that, because if I can get something else or someone else to do all the work for me, it saves me a lot of time, and it lets me focus on higher value work. So I'm going to show you how I got there, but first I want to tell you the story behind this project and why I need a machine to be my junior level analyst. I work in central comms at Princeton. About 75% of our effort goes towards strategic messaging in the form of what we call news, and that's published on princeton.edu. And that's great, we're putting all that effort in, except that our visitors spend most of their time on about 100 mostly static pages that describe what Princeton's about. Like at every other school, it's about academics, research, admission, visiting, things like that. Still, news is very important to us, and it's so important that we don't have a lot of time to give all those other static pages the attention that they need. And that's made even harder by a new problem. Those of you in higher ed will know what I'm talking about. That. So if you're in higher ed, the Eye of Sauron in Washington is watching you. And budgets and personnel have been pulled back across higher ed, certainly true at Princeton. And we're now spending more and more of our resources trying to get the lidless eye to look somewhere else. And when we do have time to work on other pages, we usually just, what do? We throw up a screenshot. We're in a room full of stakeholders, and you say to everybody in the room, just make this better. And what happens? Everybody groans. And if you do that for 100 pages, 100 times, nobody shows up at the meetings anymore. But why does everybody groan at a screenshot? Well, the first is, that question, what does better even mean? If we want positive change, we have to be specific about what works and what doesn't work. If you have a good content analyst and a good analytics strategist, they're going to do just that. And second, we need to remove screenshots from the equation. They are shiny objects. They distract people from the real questions, things like, does this content fit our page's purpose? Does it support the key message that we're trying to convey? Does it meet our audience's goals, our institutional goals? And screenshots can tell you absolutely nothing about how a page is performing, so it's hard to make those decisions. And finally, we all struggle to think across domains. Writers, you guys think in words, right? Designers, you guys think in images and layout. Stakeholders, they want to think, unfortunately, in their org charts, and executives are basically a pain in everybody's ass. They're sitting in the room with you. So a good content audit will normalize the page's content and performance so that the entire team can think together, kind of think as one as they go through the process. So knowing all that, I wondered, what if I could just press a button and generate that first draft? And I said, well, I wonder if this can be done. And it can be done. And I want to show you how I did it. Do the slide here. Well, it starts with already knowing what a good content audit should look like, so you should put that together with your team. And if you have that in hand, the next step is figuring out what you need to do to feed it. I figured I needed to feed it two things, the content itself and also the metrics behind the content. And I needed both because metrics tell people tell you how people are engaging with your content, and the two together give you a much fuller picture of the page's performance so that you can make smarter changes. I always want to make changes in context and with that knowledge. So let's look at each one of those parts. And the first part is the page's content. So I realized right off the bat I had a problem. How do I get my content into these Python scripts that I was developing? Not a developer. Python is a scripting language that's going to do all the work for us here. Page scraping did not work for me. I used Beautiful Soup to try to do that. That failed hard. I tried to get AI to scrape my page. Both came back really, really noisy, throwing a lot of stuff I didn't need, and it wasn't working out. So my solution was to turn the content into JSON. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a structured data format that stores information in a way that scripts can use and different applications can process easily. Then, now that we have the content, then we have to go for the metrics. And I identified metrics across 4 categories, have them up here. The first, engagement, gives me a good sense of the page's health. But I also want to know where the traffic comes from and how do people click to and from my pages. Now I assume in all this that my pages are the first page view event in a user's session, essentially a landing page. I chose that because I figure landing pages are the most critical moment in the user's journey because it sets the bar really, really high. Right? Someone arrives at your site and they're going to look at that content and they're going to decide either they're going to engage with it and stay on your site or they're going to leave. And with that, if I know that, I can then answer the question, is this page leaving a good first impression? Because that's really what I want to know. So once I have the metrics, I needed a way to make those numbers usable, especially for AI, which I'm going to throw it all into later. And to do that, I have to bucket those pages, essentially qualify them as high performers or low performers for each one of my metrics. I want to know, for example, is this page's bounce rate unusually high? And I can only do that if I compare that one page's, for all these metrics, but that one page with all the other pages in my website. It's kind of a way of benchmarking. I use 2 techniques to do that. The first is called the interquartile range, or IQR. I have a box plot there on the right. I'm sure you've seen a few of those, and if you've ever seen one like it, that's IQR at work. It finds what's normal, essentially the middle of the data where most pages will fall. Although, truth be told, I really don't care at all about the middle, and I don't care about normal. I only care about the outliers and what's happening at the extremes. So I do that, and I look for the top 25%, and that gives me my high performers, and I look at the bottom 25%, and that's those are my low performers. Now, IQR is really good for big picture views because it's not really sensitive to small changes in data that I might have from period to period. However, it does not zoom in well, and like if I'm looking at, for example, a section, which I want to do, for that I need a different technique. And this is my other math technique. It's called Jenks natural breaks. I use Jenks because sections often have very lumpy data. You get 1 or 2 pages that kind of stand out, big numbers, and the rest all, long tail. And the shape is kind of weird around that. Jenks, it's an unsupervised machine learning algorithm. It finds the natural clusters in the data, the places where that data naturally wants to group together. And I also use it to find those high and low performers. To show you what it does, I have a bar chart there on the right. This is from data from another project, but I think it illustrates Jenks pretty well. I've asked it to find 5 clusters in that data. Now, if I were to take those red lines away and ask you, okay, could you show me 2 clusters? That'd be pretty easy, right? Even 3 might be okay, easy to do by eye. But to pick out 5, that's a little bit harder. And Jenks does that with precision based on how those numbers naturally separate. Okay, I've got the quantitative work done. Now I need to turn to interpreting the metrics and the content, and that's the job of the LLM. And to get that moving in the right direction, we need to give it the right prompts. Now, the LLM prompts that I'm using are going to interpret that content and quantitative data, sometimes separately, sometimes together. I'm going to tell you this is where, at least for me, this is where it gets really hard, even if I'm aiming for a B+. AI is really, really good at qualitative assessments, but you have to do the work to get it consistent and to get reliable results over time. And it will not do all the work for you. There's no magic wand here, and getting prompts right at least drove me a little batty along the way. I'm not going to go into the basics of prompt writing. There's plenty of stuff out there on that, but I did want to share with you what actually helped me. And I learned to feed it the structured data, be very specific about what I want, detailed in my instructions, build context, so I'm building a chat history that I'm feeding back in with each prompt so it knows what has been going on. And then when I don't get the results that I wanted or I thought were right, I'd go back and revise the prompts. And also, and this, I don't know why this delights me to no end, I used AI to help me develop AI prompts. I thought was amusing. Now I've got 12 prompts in this process. First one's a system prompt. It sets the context, the role, the rules for what is going to become a conversation. Well, it's all done in the API, but it's still a conversation even though we don't see it. The next 11 are mostly single-purpose prompts, and they're designed to do things like find the page's key message and priority, check for well-formed alt text or for aging news links that we really shouldn't have had in there for 5 years, interpret metrics and the page's content, surface risks, and then finally write an action plan that the team can take and go start doing things to fix the page. The results, again, for each prompt are fed back in, so I have context that builds over time. I want to show you 2 prompts as examples, these things I learned along the way. This first one is for analytics. That's the prompt on the right. It takes something like bounce rate and also its value and then those IQR labels that I got from earlier. And what it'll do in the eventual report is explain to my content team what the bounce rate value actually means for them. Now you're seeing the whole prompt on the right, and it's short and it works really, really well. And it says, hey, take this data, LLM, tell me what it means, but don't make any assumptions. And it's that last part, the last paragraph, the guardrails essentially in this prompt, that's the biggest part of the prompt. It's just telling the LLM, really don't do these things that I don't want you to do. Please do what I asked you to do, which it did want to tell me things I didn't want a lot of times. That same structure carries through to my content analysis prompt. I'm sorry about the data dump. This is only an excerpt of that prompt. I did highlight those 5 field names. That's really what I wanted you to see, because this prompt takes in the same stuff. It says, based on the data, the analysis, and the guardrails, tell me something, but instead of like that one I just showed before, I'm asking it to return 5 fields, and that is like way too much. I've got to break this thing up into 5 individual prompts because I found that complex prompts need more and more and more guardrails to kind of really stay on track. And even then, honestly, I don't think that the results are really that good. So I've got to break this thing up. Okay, so we have the inputs. We've categorized them with math. We've built LLM prompts. Now let's see how this whole thing goes together. So here's how I've designed my pipeline, which is a sequence of steps that takes our inputs and turns them into the final report. I'm going to start here with the analytics performance analysis. I'm ingesting the Drupal node. We're using Drupal at Princeton as JSON. I'm throwing in some GA4 engagement metrics. In there, I'm going to figure out which page and section we're analyzing, create some derivative metrics that I'll use later, and then run those IQR and Jenks algorithms. Well, that's going to get passed on to the LLM content analysis. We're going to pull in more GA4 data that doesn't need any pre-processing. I'm going to run those LLM calls that I showed you earlier, and then I'm going to interpret the performance and the metrics on the page content. Now, also, by the way, I'm diving in there. I'm just diving. We have pages, and they have these little tile sections, and I'm going to dive through each one of those individually so that I can see how they behave or how they're performing one by one. because I want to know, does this section fit the page's purpose and its key message? Later on, I'll find the risks, write some summaries, create an action plan, and so forth. Now, this data all gets packaged up, and it sends it over to my report generation script, which is pulling in a docx template that I have on Google Drive, and then it's going to save it to Google Drive, and I can share that report with my team. All right, I want to show to you in action. All right, as I've been practicing this, it starts a little blurry. It will sharpen up. Just want to show you that this thing actually works, not vaporware I put together. The run takes about 4 minutes, so I really sped this up a lot. And in the end, you'll see you get a 20-page report. And look, it's a B+ work product, and it needs manual review. You might see, even though I am going really fast, here you can see I'm uploading my GA4 data. Right now, they're CSV files that I downloaded from Google Analytics. Some things the LLM just isn't going to know. Who are the campus partners, right? Governance issues, things like that. When did we last review this? And here's the report that's come up, and I'm sorry I'm scrolling through it fast because it is really, really long. So I'll put those things in manually. Some of those I think eventually I'll be able to script. But you can see here on the left, if I know it's a little hard probably from the angles there, what our different sections are. And now I'm in the content tiles. This is each one of the content tiles on the page. And it just asks those same questions. What are you doing here? Are you supporting the entire point of this page and so forth? So now I can give this to my team. Getting here came with some lessons. I want to share some of those with you. The big thing is that AI is not magic, and if you want good results, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to work hard at it sometimes. And despite my silly joke at the beginning, your natural intelligence is still superior to what AI can do. Maybe that's not true in 6 months from now, but it's true today at least, and I'm going for it. I'm going with it. You are the boss, so make sure that the output is right. The last thing you want to do, and I'm not naming any names, but staff member did this to me once. I asked for him to do something. He ran some code through AI and said, here are the answers. And I'm like, dude, this does not make any sense at all. You do not want to be in that situation with your boss. Turned out he didn't want to be in that situation with his boss either. Also, this process replaces nobody. I lost my analytics position. I still have the need for the work. The work does not go away, so this is helping me fill that gap. And then what does the future look like for something like this? Well, the project's going to grow. So I got confirmation of that yesterday. We're going to continue to improve it. We're working to distill 20 pages into like 1 or 2 summary or executive summary pages, because that's a little bit easier to deal with. And then use that content audit as a reference document. We're going to move it to the cloud, schedule some automatic content audits, connect it to some additional APIs like Google Analytics, so I don't have to update that or upload that content or that data manually. And I want to expand this approach to answer other questions like, okay, what message did we tell people this week? Because I can see in analytics, here's the content people read this week. I know I can read that content with some of my prompts and understand what it's about. Okay, if I take all that for maybe the 5 news articles people looked at, we know what we put up there and what we publish, what we think we're saying. You're always wondering, well, what are people actually hearing? Well, they're telling us what they read in analytics. If I can analyze that, I can find out what it is that we said versus what it is that people were interested in and they actually read. I think that could be really, really interesting for some folks. Anyway, that's the whole thing. I made it in 24 minutes. So, thank you. I hope this can help you, and whatever if this is interesting to you, certainly you can reach out to me. I'm very easy to find. Just Google my name. Please drop me an email. I'm happy to chat with you. And hopefully I give you some things that you can bring to your own teams and say, hey, I heard this guy say this at this conference, can we do it? And then, when they say no, you can say yes, you actually can do it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to, we'll go through.
What actions have been taken after you looked at the reports? Have you gotten to that point yet?
So in typical Princeton fashion, we sat down and we talked about it for a long time. And that's where we'll be for the next 10 years. So yeah, we are talking about it. What's sort of normal? we're not recording this, are we? Keep this in this room. What's really typical for Princeton is, no, we can keep it on, it's fine. No, just, as long as it doesn't get back to my VP. Until somebody writes something down, nothing gets done, right? So a lot of what this project was about, we have been talking about how it's part of a page stewardship program. We know we've had this problem for a long time. We know we've had the lack of resources. But, I've said, hey, we can do blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, yeah, but nothing happens until somebody writes it down. So I decided I'm going to write it down. And now that's getting people to have some real meaningful conversations. So we've used this in a couple of one-off instances. We're not yet at the point where we're doing kind of a rigorous plan, like going around over the course of the year for 100 pages. But people are buying into it now. This really helped to get the buy-in. And getting to that point where we say, oh yeah, we need a couple of page executive summary, that's where we're moving towards. So it's really promising. It's not at a point where we're doing this every month yet, but we are going to get there. I can tell we are. So yeah.
Have you considered factoring in things like scroll or intent to weight output of the analysis of the content?
So yes, and we haven't done that particular one. There are a number of others. I heard a wonderful session on SEO and accessibility and things today, which I'm going to steal from you. I took a lot of notes. There are other things we can work into it. I think there's another side to this, and that is that I'm waiting also for questions from my team. What is it that they want to know? A document like this, 20 pages, it's like beating somebody over the head. It's not. I mean, I do have that one section at the end say, do all this, but no, it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
But it gets people to start to talk about what they really, really want, and I want to, foster these conversations so that we can get to that actionable point. And then steal, of course, from other sections that I've heard here. Yeah.
In your flowchart, you had a Drupal node JSON.
Yeah.
Is that you just generate that automatically from the prompt that you have?
No, I wrote a module. Oh, by the way, where did I fail along the way for that? I tried to use the REST module, tried to use views to produce JSON for a node. I failed in both cases just because of the way that we've architected the page. I couldn't get it to put out what I wanted. So I wrote a module that said, okay, bring me back these fields, dive in. We have this thing where we're using paragraphs to get to custom entities, and those are fielded, and I had to kind of dive all into that to get what I wanted. Yeah, which I couldn't do with REST. Yeah.
And those JSON, how did you manage to import that to the LLM?
Is the JSON already imported to?
The LLM.
Oh, yes, that was actually the first click you saw. I'm sorry, it went really, really fast. That's the first. It needs to know that, and that's really setting the stage for everything else, because it's telling.
Did you have a custom tool for that?
Well, I mean, all the scripts that you saw run, those were all custom. I didn't use any off-the-shelf anything. It was all Google Colab. I put it in. I'm going to move it to Google Cloud, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So, and then hopefully, if Brian, my developer colleague, is here, I'm going to try to convince him after this talk that we could put our content into a custom endpoint that I could just have Google Cloud go grab and just pull in. And you're nodding yes, so that's good. Yeah.
Why a ruckus cap and not Princeton cap?
Why?
Why a ruckus cap and not Princeton?
Because I went to Rutgers.
Ah.
It took me a while to get that R right on that picture, by the way, because it was giving me all sorts of non-letters and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm working with Princeton. I mean, half of Princeton's run by people from Rutgers. So. Any other questions? Well, thank you all. It's fun talking to you, and thanks for hanging out the last